Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the founder of SEO National, Mr. Damon Burton. How are you today, Damon?
What's up, Steven? What's up, everybody? I'm good, thanks.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining on the show. I love having SEO experts on because it creates the best controversial questioning straight off the bat.
It's so funny the takes on SEO people, but
It is.
I've been, we'll get into how I've been in this for 14 years, and we'll get into that. And so it's always interesting to see like the opinions of SEOs over the years.
Yeah, it's like SEO is dead. SEO isn't dead. SEO
Every
is
day
great.
it's dead.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to bet you must have to have a lot of self-control to not go into those holes of Reddit in terms of like SEO is dead threads.
Oh, dude, I don't even go. You know what? Yeah, I don't even go into those, and not because it's like a hole, which I agree with, but I just don't get into SEO opinions of others very much. Period. Because
Yeah.
what I've found over the years is, okay, I do things really well, and my team does things really well, so why do we need to validate ourselves against other people? And then B, every once in a while, when you do kind of stumble into those things, or somebody sends you a link and they're like, "What do you think about this?" It's always just like the same people regurgitating other people's same stuff, and so it's nothing new. We just stay in our lane and do our own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It must be hard for you to sort of, well, actually, it must be really easy for you to do that rather than the hard side. But before we jump more into the whole big debate, if we do, maybe we won't, who knows?
Let's do
Just
it.
give me keep people on their edge, give me an overview of what you do with SEO National, because I know that you also have like your personal brand as well.
Yeah, so I founded SEO National in 2007. So we're around 14 years into it. My background, how I got into SEO, is I started a car enthusiast website, and so when I was in my early 20s, of course, I was into cars and this and that, and
Are we
as I
talking like Too Fast, Too Furious cars, or
exactly, yeah. So I came up with this website like 2 or 3 years before that movie came out, and so then when that movie came out, it just added to the interest in the type of site that I had. And so I said, well, how do I make this better? Because I largely was just experimenting in web design and things like that. And so then I said, okay, well, how do I improve this? So I got better at design. And then as the audience kept growing, I said, how do I monetize this? And so then that's what got me into marketing. And I did it as a side hustle for a while. And then when I founded the company in 2007, I got to a point where I said, well, I have something pretty good here with the side hustle. Why don't I actually do something with it? And, I kind of took the risk of, well, my day job pays for 60% of my income, but it's like 80% of my time. And so I got to a point where I said, I could still pay my bills. It's going to suck to lose 60% of your income, but it's going to be awesome to free up that time. And fortunately, it was a well-calculated risk. It only took about 2 months by freeing up that time. It allowed me to recoup that income pretty quickly. And then now we're a team of 20, and we just SEO is our thing. That's it. We don't do paid ads, don't do funnels, don't do none of that.
amazing. And 2007, I mean, the year after that, the world kind of went to shit.
Yeah.
How did you think in terms of, because was this like your first business venture as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So
How
this
did
is
you
my first
think
one.
when, as a new business owner, 12 months in, the world is hit by this economical crash? That must have been a nice rude awakening, I guess, for you to crack on
So
with.
surprisingly, it wasn't. And then that's not to downplay the circumstances. Certainly, it was a big deal globally. But the reason why, when I look back at that time, and I think about the circumstances beyond me, then I see the gray cloud and how scary things were. But just in my little bubble, it wasn't that bad. And I think a lot of that is valuable today, given that we're kind of in a similar circumstance. But the
Sure.
reason why it wasn't a huge negative impact for me, we grew. Well, I say we loosely because the first year or two is, it was just me and a VA or two here and there. But the financials grew, and I think what contributed to that is I'll give you a perfect example. My first half a dozen SEO clients, I still have 14 years later,
Wow.
which is amazing to say for marketing in general, when most companies probably struggle to say that they have a majority of their clients past a year. But what contributed to that, or actually give you the story how I got those clients, which will add to the story of what contributed to 2008 not being that scary. They were design clients. So as I kind of touched on, my original intro into this world was design. And so I was the guy that did websites on the side here and there. And I was the affordable option, the budget provider. And I had a design client said, well, what do you know about Google? And, you know, he didn't say SEO because it wasn't quite as mainstream as a term back then. But I said, I know enough that I'm willing to experiment on you if you experiment on me, but I don't feel comfortable charging you for it, but I also don't want to work for free. So here's the deal. How about I do it for free until we hit a benchmark? And then if we hit that goal, then you owe me retroactively. And then obviously it's working. So then we'll proceed to move forward with the retainer. So we ended up hitting that goal pretty quickly. I think we set like a 3-month mark and we ended up hitting it in 3 or 4 weeks. Wow. And so I offered that same opportunity to client number 2, who is still with us. And it worked out really well. And so at that point, I always kind of knew I didn't want to dilute myself and be the agency or the designer or marketer that does it all and then is kind of mediocre at all of it. And so at that point, I said, SEO is appealing. I like it. I feel comfortable with it now. I feel comfortable enough digging deeper, perfecting my expertise in it. And so at that point, I said, I'm going to be the SEO guy. And so what kind of come full circle to your question, the reason why I think we had success is because just like nowadays, people are trying to protect their dollar and they want to make it go further and they want to give it to people that they feel like genuinely have their best interest at heart and aren't just out to sell them and be like, oh yeah, SEO is awesome. But actually explain why, and not only explain the advantages, but explain the disadvantages. It takes time and here's why. And like, you know, not the smoke and mirrors and things like that. And nowadays people are very sensitive and, you know, they want to protect that dollar and they want to maximize it. And so if you can come in and really provide, obviously you have to be good at what you're going to present, but you also need to come from a position of humanity and sincerity. And I think that contributed a lot back then to our growth and is very applicable to opportunities in today's world too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that shows your values in terms of yourself, but obviously you've adopted that into the business as well. One thing you touched upon sort of pre-business was the website design on the side and being that lower budget option. Mm-hmm. When you started SEO National, what did you have that conversation in terms of where you wanted to position yourself in the marketplace?
Internally with myself, yeah. So I was okay being the budget provider at first. Obviously, I didn't want to be, but that was a reality, and so I was okay with that. And so when you start, you know, in my case, starting, we were at $300 a month, and now our minimum's $3,000 a month. And so back then, it was sure it would be exciting to go, well, we're here at 300, and we want to get over here to 3,000. But I've always been very ethically and morally driven. And I didn't want to ask that rate without being able to justify the cost. And so we incrementally increased our rates as we better perfected our craft and got better results and bigger clients and bigger case studies to be able to prove that value. So I never increased our rates until we could prove that value.
Yeah, which is the best way to do it, I think. So 14 years in the SEO business, I mean, I can only start to imagine how it has changed for you over time from, like you said earlier, SEO not really being a known entity. It was just the Google thing. Or back in the days when you could just click on your company name on Google and that will get it up.
That was it.
You know, and you just have a bot going, or you are the bot even. To now, which SEO is everywhere. You know, marketing is everywhere. There's sort of an agency for everything, sort of agencies that try and offer everything. How in the last couple of years have you seen the impact in terms of marketing and how people are viewing it, if at all any different?
I think there's definitely in the broader public perception, there's a difference. For the types of people that we work, we're still kind of in a bubble because we've been fortunate enough to build a reputation where we just attract the types of people we like. But I think that's dramatically different than the majority of marketers in the marketing marketplace. Marketers in the marketing marketplace.
Yeah. Someone has already just brought that domain name.
Yeah.
That's it now.
Marketers, marketing, marketplace.com. Yeah. So what I've noticed, and it's really interesting. I had a call yesterday, a Zoom with a really high profile kind of person, and they said it's kind of, SEO is interesting because it's been around arguably longer than just about any form of internet marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And so at some point it was the flashy, shiny object. And then Facebook came in and ClickFunnels came in and things like that. And so there's nothing wrong with paid ads and all those other things, but it seems like it's accelerated the desire for instant gratification. And what's interesting is what a lot of people will come and present as an argument to why Facebook ads is better than SEO or whatever is better than SEO. And my take is none of them are better than the other. They all serve a purpose. Like, I'm not going to throw rocks at paid ads, because if you're getting a return, then why not do them? But what I think is interesting is some people come in and say, well, how do you, SEO is horrible because you always have to deal with the algorithm. And I'm like, yeah, but the algorithm at its core is still the same. It's always like good content, good structure, easy to navigate website, like really basic things. And you can't tell me that you're not fighting against Facebook's paid ad algorithm every other day. How many paid ad accounts have you had shut down this month? So it's like the argument.
Moment your customers learn the word algorithm, you're probably just hitting your head against the wall anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean more from a not from a customer discussion,
from like
but marketers versus marketers. Yeah, it's funny because it almost reveals how little they know, or just like how isolated they are in their thought processes of just their form of marketing. And so it seems like the majority of the arguments as to why one marketer says SEO is dead or not up to par with other forms is really their lack of understanding of it, because I could equally argue anything they say about SEO back to whatever their argument is.
Of course.
And really the only downside to SEO is it's slow. Like, it's slower than most strategies, but it's way more consistent and reliable if you have the patience to let it kick in. Like when the pandemic broke out, our clients are just fine. Like, we've had no dramatic changes, and if anything, we're probably up and boarded new clients. So it's a lot more stable if you're willing to put in the time to wait for it to take effect.
And is that one of the common struggles that you see with, potentially new customers, that patient side of things? Because like you said, there's shiny pennies everywhere now in terms of the next get clients quick scheme.
Not so much for us, because look, I mean, we're not dying for business, and usually by the time people come to us, they've been referred. Well, not even that. I mean, certainly possible, but they've been referred, and so they've already been educated on the process and our transparency, and that it takes time. And if for some reason that hasn't happened yet, I have no problem saying, look, I can tell that you're not. I reinforce the concept of patience during the negotiations, in the contract, after the negotiations, after the signed contract. We send out, touch point reminder emails that say, here's where you're at in week 1, here's where you're at in week 3. I have no problem highlighting the fact that SEO is slow, because there's a valid reason why it's slow. Like, we have to do research as to what keywords you can monetize. We have to look at the competitive landscape. Then we have to build a content strategy to support all those targets. So it's not a bad thing that it's slow. There's a justifiable reason why it's slow. And so if you're comfortable being able to communicate that instead of, well, just trust us, then it's not a scary thing. So I have no problem saying, look, you're in it for a year or you're not. And that's, take it or leave it.
So you mentioned that you have a team of 20 now, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, congratulations. For you, how has it changed in terms of your identity as a founder, going from, one-man band, essentially, like you said, maybe a couple of VAs at the early days, to running a team of 20, managing that? Have you changed your style at all?
Not so much. If anything, I'm trying to figure out that change now. So
it's always figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the first year or two was kind of a one-man show, and then I had a handful of VAs, and then one year I was listening to 2 books. I was listening to E-Myth Revisited and 4-Hour Workweek, and the combination of listening to those at the same time really made me say, well, I have process. So if you're not familiar with the book, E-Myth Revisited tries to encourage you to build your business on processes instead of being dependent on employees. And then 4 Hour Work Week is, how to, do things quicker and more efficiently. And so what I took away from those books was, I already have processes, but I don't have them documented properly. And so for the year after that, I spent a lot of time, like an hour or two every other day for a year, on top of running a business, being dad, being a husband, like spending that extra time to document processes. And, maybe we talk about that next. And so I did that. And then so after I did that from E-Myth Revisited, and then 4 Hour Work Week made me say, well, why don't I have more team members? And so we went from, 4 people to 10 people within a couple months. And so I've been okay taking phases in business growth, because for me, I've learned things. I don't regret not scaling faster. It would have been cool, but I think there was some important things that I learned about myself in the first year or two. Primarily understanding the opportunity that I had, because if I had just blown up a business a lot quicker, then I probably would have taken it for granted and maybe less serious.
You've grown it in an SEO manner.
Yeah. Strategic and slow. And so, no, I've always been very, in the beginning, we talked about the loyalty of my clients, and I still practice that. We talked about my team members. I have a lot of loyalty with my team members. What's funny is, until the pandemic happened, so half my team is in the States and half my team is in the Philippines. And I have never, until March of 2020, my longest employee is 11 years. And until March, I have never met a single one of them in person. And so in March, I go to the Philippines and I meet half my team, and we end up having to cut it short because there was the pandemic was breaking out. And then I had a 48-hour window to get out of the Philippines, or else I was going to be stuck there for a while. So what's funny is I've just recently meet half my team, and the other half that's in the States, I have still never met in person. But
I love the way you've met the ones across the
farthest
world.
away. Yeah,
but the ones on your doorstep, so to speak. Maybe.
Well, none of them are in where I'm at in Utah either, and we've made efforts. The pandemic has certainly been a roadblock and other things, but the reason why I bring it up is I think what's helped the company grow is that loyalty. Even though I have kind of never met any of my team, I would put their loyalty up against anybody that's listening, just because I really make a strong effort to build a culture of support. And, maybe the last comment on this type of topic is I had one of the team members in the Philippines get married about 3 weeks ago, and they asked me to be a godfather. And that's the third time I've been asked to be a godfather. Wow. There's one of my two of my team members are a married couple, and they've been married for 4 years now. And this is such a funny story, but it really shows the team loyalty and the culture that we build. Is they got married 4 years ago. At the time, my wife was pregnant with her daughter. And so they invited me to physically go to their wedding, but I didn't feel comfortable traveling that far when my wife was due. And so we joked about a cardboard cutout. They really got a life-size cardboard cutout of me. And I have pictures of a 6-foot cardboard Damon
in the wedding pictures.
In wedding pictures, yeah.
I love that, and that does show loyalty, but also, like you said, that culture that you've built for them. Let me ask you something just on this. One last thing on this sort of team topic. Then, when you went when you went to the Philippines and you met them for half the team for the first time, has that changed anything in that team dynamic? Do you think?
I think because of the pandemic, yeah. If we didn't have the pandemic, I think everything would be the same, because everything was already good. Yeah. But exactly. I think what happened with the pandemic is it further cemented that loyalty, because as their friends are losing their jobs and their friends are going through financial troubles, I haven't let anybody go. And in fact, I've come in and I said, hey, like, what can I do for you guys? I realize there's a lot of potential mental health, things that all of us are up against. Can I buy you a subscription to like a gaming, like some of my guys are gamers. I'm like, can I buy a gaming thing for you? the married couple also, the husband and wife have the same birthday. So I sent them an
They
extra.
wanted another cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
They wanted an updated version.
So I sent them another cardboard cutout.
You should send them a cardboard cutout of your whole family. Just have that photo of them on the couch.
That's going to be the Christmas cards as life-size cardboard cutouts.
Do it. You have to do it.
I know.
You really do. I'm going to send every team member this podcast just so they know what's happening.
You know what? Somebody was joking about when I was sharing that story on a podcast the other day. They said, Damon, you were ahead of your time, because now have you seen the baseball leagues and things like that where they're doing the where you can buy yourself, if you can't attend the game, do a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
But no, so like I'll do little things with them on their birthday. I sent them a couple extra bucks, and I said, I don't know what restaurants are open there, what you can do, but maybe go have a nice dinner. And they sent me a picture the next day, and they went and had sushi, and they're like, thanks so much. We wouldn't have been able to do this without. Yeah, so like, I think it's really just kind of cemented that I actually care, and they're not a commodity.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the book, Outrank. But also, before we talk about the book, what made you write the book? And also, you've been having a successful business for 14 years. What made you originally come out as Damon Burton, the brand, the SEO guy? What probed you to do that? Both answers kind of go together. So why did I do the Damon Burton brand, and why did I write a book? The overlapping answer is because I wanted to bring more current, realistic examples of SEO to the marketplace. So as you talk, there's, you used to be able to do these things and these things that don't work anymore, but some people are still out there pushing those things. Sure. And there's tons of inaccurate information because SEOs are good at SEO. And so they can put out whatever they put out. And so when I wrote the book, I kind of had two readers in mind. One was the little guys. So, you can't afford SEO. Here's a blueprint to figure it out on your own. And then obviously the second audience would be the bigger businesses that they know SEO is the right answer, but they don't know who to hire and they don't want to get ripped off. And so there's sections in there that are dedicated to what do you ask an SEO to qualify, if they're good or bad. So I really just wanted to bring some transparency to the marketplace, and that's that. I mean, I do the process in writing the book as a whole.
Freaking sucks, man. Whoever says writing a book is enjoyable is
how did you do it? Was it over time, or did you do what other people do, lock yourself away and just get it done? No,
totally over time. Took about 2 years. So, and I even had a head start because I already had all these processes documented, and it was still hard. So the problem that you run into is, well, at least for me, is I didn't want to just push out a book just to push out a book. Yeah. Certainly that's part of it.
Again, this is sort of like the new a marketing ploy, that sort of thing that's quite advertised now.
Yeah, I mean, people push out books all the time as a credibility play, which is great, but I don't want to do it only for credibility. And then when, realistically, the majority of people that, like, if I gift somebody the book or we send it in our new client welcome packages and things like that, like, most people aren't going to read it, right? So it's largely an expensive business card. But the people that do read it, I wanted it to be genuine and legit and actually provide. So I didn't write it knowing that most people wouldn't read it, and it's not like I put fluff in there. I wrote it because I wanted to write it, but then also knowing that that's the reality of things. Everybody's busy. So it took about 2 years. The first phase was, okay, what's the outline? Like, what do I want to talk about? I got all these stories and things and processes, and so that part took time to just kind of get an outline out there. Then I had to go back and fill in the blanks. And then as you fill in the blanks, then you go kind of finalize the draft. And then you kind of go through these phases of editing is what took the longest. So I probably got the book done in the first, 6 to 9 months. Then it took another year and a half to finish, because now you got a 150-page book in front of you. And so you have to read 150 pages. Like, when do I have time to read 150 pages? And so then you would read it, and then you would go through and say, well, I need to move this chapter. And so you go from one chapter to another and like switch them around. Then you got to read it again and make sure it flows correctly. And then you move pages around, and then you move paragraphs around. And so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, from chapters to pages to paragraphs to sentences. So it was a lot of repetitious editing, because you know, you can hire ghostwriters to do certain things, but I couldn't hire a ghostwriter to say, here's how you do very specific SEO things.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like you said, you know, you had all the processor to hand. You're the person that knows it best. On that subject then, of knowing it best, one thing I did want to ask you was, in the current state of sort of the SEO industry, what would you say is one thing that needs to be improved, that needs to be adjusted? And if there is one thing in that, you know, I'm assuming there is some things that probably need to be improved in an industry. No industry is perfect, but if that one thing, how is SEO National sort of helping to improve that?
A couple things come to mind. It's strictly from an SEO perspective. It's just the transparency. I think a lot of SEO takes time, as we touched on, and there's valid reasons why it takes time. But I think a lot of the other SEOs take advantage of that. And because if you know about, even if you're not in SEO, but you're considering it, you've probably heard that it takes time. And so a lot of these other guys will take advantage of that and say, well, it takes a year, but they don't explain why, or they're not actually factoring in what they are genuinely going to do in that year. It's just become part of the sales pitch. So transparency goes a huge way, and that's really led to our growth. And I'll give you an example. I had a lead call earlier this week with a big company that they come in and we do Zoom and the small talk stuff, and then I go, look, here's the clear opportunities of what to fix. Here's the advantages of SEO. Here's the disadvantages. And then he goes, okay, well, you know, what's the time and cost? And so I said, well, you're probably in it for at least a year. After that, we'll go month to month, and it's $3,000 a month. And he just laughed, and he goes, that was the most refreshing pitch I've ever had, because you didn't build it up with a bunch of fake crap. You didn't like try to like convince me to get my mind frame in saying, yes, you're good at what you do. Here's the cost. Do you want it or not?
Yeah, take it or leave it.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way, and that kind of goes to the whole marketing thing, because I think we've abused the process of, you know, find the pain points and drill them home, and
that
really
such a scripted blueprint now that's been a free ebook for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and so I think people are kind of going the other way, where they don't want the sales pitch. Like, they'll still buy the things, but they just don't want to feel like they've been manipulated.
I feel like a lot of people now in recent years as well, because of that, because there's been such a almost, you know, force down your throat sort of mentality in selling, that companies, before they even reach out to you, they're doing a lot more research in terms of who you are, what you do, what you offer, you know, who you work with, than they did before. So when they are talking to you, they kind of already know what your sort of trophy store is.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many tools nowadays that people can find what they want. And so a lot of times you don't have to sell the people. Like, if they've reached out to you, it's for a reason. So what you have to do is earn their trust. And so, especially nowadays, like we talked earlier about making dollars go further and things like that. Like, I don't know. That's just, I've just always hated the sales process. So it's just what I've avoided. But I do think that as a whole, it's starting to shift. I don't think it's the majority of the marketplace, but I do see some momentum shifting to being more transparent. And I mean, let's be honest. It's like, it's a stress relief for yourself. I can't imagine the people that have to wake up every day and go, and then look at their calendar and go, I gotta, like, it's a numbers game, and I gotta call these 20
I've gotta psych
people.
myself up.
Yeah, we have enough business that we have to turn business down, and I'm not calling anybody.
Yeah. That's the best position to be, right, as a business owner.
Yeah,
for sure. I have two final questions for you. Number one bit is a three-parter answer, but if you could give sort of your top 3 bits of advice for anyone that is looking to up their SEO game, what would they be?
It depends on who the audience is. So I'll kind of give like some easy options and, you know, maybe a more technical option. So the easy option would be to start with content. You know, you hear a lot of people say that, but so maybe I'll give a little more specific answer. Sure. you can only rank for what Google can read. So you have to put out content, and it has to be unique content, because you can't rank uniquely without presenting something unique. If you're just copying and pasting or regurgitating the same garbage, like, there's no value in it. So you're a business owner or an expert in something, so share whatever that something is, those little bits of extra knowledge that you have. And a lot of people understandably don't like to write. So I'll give you a couple options on how to like beat that part of the process. One thing that you could do is just, do your selfie videos. And then after you've done the selfie video, a lot of people are more comfortable talking. So either do it on a selfie video, do it on audio, whatever, but get it recorded. And then you can use something like descript.com. It's a super cheap transcription service. You just throw the file in there, it'll kick you out text. So you have to polish it up, but that's 90% of the hard work is done. And then you just format it into a nice written piece of content. So I would focus on writing content, showcasing your expertise and why you're different. If you want to know, maybe you need help figuring out what to write about, two places that you can start that are free is when you write content for the purpose of SEO, it needs to support words that you can monetize. So a lot of times people are out there blogging, but they're just blogging about whatever comes to mind. So there's some easy ways to kind of tap into your audience's mindset and buyer intent. One way is to just simply go to Google. And as you start typing out one of the phrases that you believe your customers might search, it'll give you the autocomplete. The autocomplete is where it's like, well, Steven, I think that as you type in these first 3 words, you want one of these 5 options. That's Google very clearly telling you that historically they have a lot of searches on those phrases. That means that is real people that have searched that a lot of times. So that could be your audience and help you understand what topics to write about. The second free tool is a website called answerthepublic.com. Are you familiar with that, Steven?
I have heard of it, but I haven't actually been on it. Funny enough, I think another SEO guy told me about it.
Said that one. It's awesome. It's super awkward. You go there and there's like this creepy guy that's staring at you. And it's definitely intentional. They've done that, and I don't know why. But before that, there was like this old creepy guy. And so their theme is creepy guys.
Nice.
But you go there and there's a little field and you just type in whatever. And what that does is collect data from autocomplete and other places of search queries. And then it tells you in this very easy to understand chart, hey, this is what your customers are searching for, the who, what, when, where, and why. And it gives you actual search phrases. Amazing. And so those are easy ways that you can tap into, finding topics to write about that your customers are already asking and wanting to know.
No, spot on. And for everything else, they just got to buy your book or content.
Yeah,
get into
I'll give you a free one.
There we go.
Is it time to put out a freebie?
Why not? Because my last question would have been, how can people find out more about you? So this is your time. Get the fireworks ready.
I got no fireworks. I told you I hate sales. All right. So how you can get a hold of me? You can go to freeseobook.com. There's a PDF version. If you want physical copy, it's on Amazon. But if you just want the download, it's freeseobook.com. There's no upsell. On the thank you page, I'll invite you to a Facebook group at the end. And then as far as where I am on social media, I'm on Facebook, and LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active.
Perfect. Damon, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for dropping some knowledge and some wisdom, and congratulations on 14 years in business. Even Thanks. That itself right now is a big triumph, I think, and I'm sure you've got a lot of big plans.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to chat. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.